Yes, you are correct. This video is indeed sponsored by the Magic Candle Company. How did you know? Use offer code OFFHAND15 for 15% off your whole purchase, and stay tuned till the end of the video for more details.
To all who come to this happy place, welcome.
It's had a very rocky history. It's one of Disney's most well-loved and most hated lands at the same time. Some people love to hate it, some people hate to love it, and some people love to love it. Or hate to hate it. I think that's all the possible combinations. Anyway, Tomorrowland is a land that evokes the spirit of the future. Whether that future is scientific or fictional depends on what attraction and what park you're at. This is the story of Tomorrowland at Disneyland and all of the Disney parks all over the world. What started out as a very simple idea for Walt Disney to show off advancing technologies to the public went on to become his personal playground into the world of theoretical physics and science fiction. While some Tomorrowland may be rooted very firmly in science fact, others may be a little bit more fantastical. This is the first part in a brand new series where we'll be taking a look at each individual land in the Disney parks and discussing the history and a few stories, secrets, and details people may not know in this, the very first episode, A Brief History of Tomorrowland. World War II sucked, but do you know what didn't suck? The economic boom that followed in America. After the war, families had a lot more to spend on leisure and vacations, and wartime technology usually transitions into civilian technology after the war is over, meaning that people would see more innovations in technology in their daily lives than they did before the war. One of those innovations, following the massive amount of rocket research that was done during World War II, was the now very real attainable possibility of space travel. A man who grew up in Marceline, Missouri, and now lived in Southern California, who went by the name of Walt Disney, had been interested in advancing technologies from a very young age, from the railroad when he was a child, mass transportation systems on the futuristic highways of tomorrow when it came to Disneyland, and even futuristic utopian cities like the original idea for Epcot, Progress City. And now that he had a successful movie studio and the money to back it, Walt decided he wanted to be a part of the future. To help pay for Disneyland, Walt signed a deal with the television station ABC. In exchange for a line of original Disney programming to be broadcast weekly on ABC, the network would help pay for the construction of Disneyland. Remember when I said Walt had the money to back his futuristic ideas? I mean, he had some of the money, not all of it. On the program, called Disneyland, not to be confused with the park, there were different segments. Fantasyland was where you could watch classic Disney animation. Frontierland would show old live-action Disney movies, or I guess at the time they'd be live-action Disney movies, along with the very, very popular at the time Davy Crockett TV show. Adventureland would showcase Walt Disney's True Life Adventure series, which is why, originally on the map, the land was supposed to be called True Life Adventure Land. And the last segment, which didn't premiere until 20 episodes into the show, Tomorrowland. This segment was an educational look into future development and technologies hosted by Ward Kimball. The title of the very first Tomorrowland segment was titled Man in Space, and you can actually go watch this on Disney Plus right now if you feel so inclined. I mean, you could watch it after this video. In the original concept for Disneyland, drawn up by Herb Ryman, Tomorrowland was known as the world of the future. Its signature attraction was a rocket simulator called Flight to the Moon. Apart from Rocket to the Moon, Walt wanted Tomorrowland to be a sort of permanent World's Fair. Well, where have we seen that before? Different companies would take up different convention spaces in the land and would show off their product of the future, even if it was just aluminum. As development of Disneyland continued, Walt realized they didn't have as much money as he thought, so Tomorrowland underwent some budget cuts. Rocket to the Moon opened with the rest of the park in 1955, even if the facade was a little less impressive than originally planned. Along with Tomorrowland's other futuristic attraction meant to simulate the high-tech highways of the futuristic year 1986. We know it today as Autopia. As far as lands at Disneyland went though, Tomorrowland was relatively barren on opening day. And after Walt Disney's death in 1965 and the conclusion of the 1964 World's Fair, Disney decided that it was finally time to update Tomorrowland to be up to par with the rest of the park. And boy, did they update it. In 1956, a year after opening, they added a very small yet much needed addition to the land, the Astrojets, which you may know today as the Astro Orbiter. In 1959, 1979, Disney added the monorail, the submarine voyage, and of course, half of the Matterhorn. Because of course, as is the case today, the Matterhorn sits in both Fantasyland and Tomorrowland and kind of hops between the two lands on guidebooks. Tomorrowland was now shaping up to be one of the best lands in the park with the addition of all these attractions. In 1967 though, a year after Walt Disney died, the area was completely rebuilt from the ground up. Well, I mean, it definitely looked a lot cooler, and they added even more rides to Tomorrowland, like the Carousel of Progress, my favorite e-ticket of all time behind the Haunted Mansion, Adventure Through Inner Space, which I've actually never been on, Flight to the Moon, and of course, the real star of the show, the best attraction at all of Disneyland, the People Mover. But now we shift gears from Walt Disney's original Magic Kingdom version of Tomorrowland to the newest version of Tomorrowland in the 1970s. The plans for the brand new Walt Disney World Resort included a Disneyland-esque park. This one would be known as the Magic Kingdom and would include, like Disneyland, Adventureland, Frontierland, Fantasyland, and Tomorrowland. And good news, unlike Disneyland, this version of Tomorrowland opened complete with different attractions for everybody to enjoy and tons of stuff to keep you occupied. Of course, I'm kidding, it opened with two attractions, one the Grand Prix Raceway, which is now the Tomorrowland Speedway, and the Skyway to Fantasyland. Honestly, if given the choice between Magic Kingdom's opening day Tomorrowland or Disneyland's opening day Tomorrowland, I'd definitely choose Disneyland. There's a lot more to offer there. Later on in the year, Tomorrowland would open two additional attractions, America the Beautiful and the Disneyland classic Flight to the Moon. And if you're wondering what America the Beautiful was, don't get your hopes up. It was a Circle Vision movie made by the Walt Disney Company for the 1958 Brussels World Fair. Yeah, Disney was getting involved in World's Fairs way before Lincoln and Small World. In 1972, If You Had Wings, a classic Omnimover-style Disney dark ride opened, and in 1974, the Starjets opened, which we know today as the Astro Orbiter. As the year 1975 was rolling closer and closer, Imagineering realized that they needed a thrill ride in the Magic Kingdom. Originally conceived by Walt Disney himself for Disneyland, but put on the back burner after he died, Space Mountain would open that year in 1975. And we don't think of it like this today, but you know how Disneyland has the Haunted Mansion and Magic Kingdom has the Haunted Mansion, but they're two kind of different rides? Space Mountain was essentially the Magic Kingdom's version of the Matterhorn at Disneyland, even coming right down to the two-track ride system and how it'll break all the bones in your body if you ride it. Just like the Matterhorn, it's pretty jerky, but that's part of the fun. And after the success of Walt Disney World's Space Mountain, they decided to bring a much smoother and, may I say, groovier version of Space Mountain to Disneyland, although this one is a lot smaller. Now, shifting gears a little bit, before we talk about more changes being made to the stateside parks, a brand new park opened in Tokyo. And right off the bat, Tokyo Disneyland did not try to represent a real blueprint for the future like the past two Tomorrowlands kind of wanted to do. Instead, this one was straight sci-fi right off the bat, and opened with a few more attractions than you would expect, you know, from an opening day Tomorrowland. It opened with two Circle Vision movies, The Skyway, Meet the World, which is like a Japanese Carousel of Progress essentially, that was originally planned for Epcot, with an original song written by the Sherman Brothers, who did the original Carousel of Progress. For shame, Disney, bring this to Epcot. Please. The Starcade, the Grand Circuit Raceway, and the Starjets. I'm hoping at this point you guys know that the Grand Circuit Raceway was essentially Autopia or the Tomorrowland Speedway, and that the Starjets were essentially the Astro Orbiter. I'm gonna stop making those comparisons now. And reaction to Tokyo Disneyland as a whole theme park was very, very positive. The reaction to Tomorrowland was, you know, it's Tomorrowland. They're still doing Tomorrowland, that's fine. Maybe next time we could do it a little differently. And boy, did they! Captain EO would premiere in Tomorrowland in 1986, and a brand new simulator attraction would replace Adventure Through Inner Space, very unfortunately, Star Tours. And while, yes, I'm sad, I lament the fact that a simulator ride took over a beautiful, classic Disney dark ride, I understand that some people like it, and especially back then, people loved this ride. And as much as I hate to say it, Space Mountain and Star Tours essentially saved Tomorrowland as we know it. Because as we continue to drift into the 90s, Disney was leaning heavily into Jules Verne's sci-fi theming for their Tomorrowlands, because the real future just wasn't working out. It's the Tomorrowland problem that we're all aware of. By the time an idea gets through research and development, construction, and completion, the futuristic invention or idea that the attraction or show was based off of is essentially commonplace now. It's easy to theme a land to the past, like New Orleans Square, Liberty Square, or Main Street USA. That's never going to change. The future, on the other hand, is always changing, which is why Disney wanted to go with a more fictional future. That way, it wouldn't change, and when it came to fictional fictional futures, Euro Disneyland would deliver. Except, no, it really wouldn't. At this point in history, Tony Baxter was working at Imagineering and he had developed an idea for a new land called Discovery Bay, which would be located more or less where Star Wars Galaxy's Edge is at Disneyland today. And although this never ended up coming to fruition, you can find pieces of it all over the world in different parks, like Journey into Imagination, which was based on the idea of Professor Marvel's Gallery of Illusion for Discovery Bay. And with Euro Disneyland, a smaller, more toned down version of Discovery Bay called Discoveryland instead of Tomorrowland. And it is here at Euro Disneyland where we would see the very first incarnation of the Astro Orbiter we all know and love, or hate, called the Orbitron. Discoveryland opened in 1992 with the rest of the park and opened with attractions like Autopia, the Disneyland Railroad, Captain EO, Star Tours, and Le Visionarium. In 1995, though, they also opened one of the most intense and interesting versions of Space Mountain de la Terre à la Lune, or Space Mountain from the Earth to the Moon, or as I know it, Space Mountain Mission 2. This version of Space Mountain looked different not only on the outside, but on the inside, where it featured inversions and loops. No other Space Mountain in the world has that. Back in the stateside parks, they were taking more and more inspiration from Discoveryland over in Paris. The Star Jets at the Magic Kingdom and the Rocket Jets at Disneyland would now become known as the Astro Orbiter. And they would take on a new kinetic sculpture map-looking theme. What do you call that? Vintage space chic, maybe? The iconic and well-loved People Mover at Disneyland was replaced by the Rocket Rods, a more thrilling, fast attraction that completely busted the track. Which is the reason why they can't just simply fix the People Mover at Disneyland these days. But hey, if they were to close down Tomorrowland for the better part of a year and tear down the People Mover track to rebuild it in all of its glory, I would be okay with that. It's a sacrifice I'm willing to make. At this point, Flight to the Moon had become Mission to Mars, and Mission to Mars had become a brand new restaurant. Red Rocket's Pizza Port, which gross, and the former theater in the back of the land which used to house the Carousel of Progress, then America Sings, now became Innoventions, a sort of technology showcase in the vein of Epcot's Future World. And at this time, the glittering, beautiful white Space Mountain was repainted to a gross, coppery green color. I've talked about this a lot, but I really don't know what they were thinking. Over in Florida, the Timekeeper starring Robin Williams opened and then closed. The Grand Prix Raceway was officially renamed to the Autopia. Just kidding, it got an even worse name with the Tomorrowland Indy Speedway. And a brand new, terrifying e-ticket attraction would replace Mission to Mars at the Magic Kingdom, known to us as Extraterrestrial Alien Encounter. One of the scariest rides at the Disney parks that I've already actually made a video on. It was then the 2000s hit, and they hit Disney pretty hard. Space Mountain at Disneyland was painted completely white again, thank goodness, and the rocket rods would close to be replaced by Buzz Lightyear's Astro Blasters. Over at the Magic Kingdom, Buzz Lightyear would take over Take Flight, which is a renaming of a previous attraction, Delta Dream Flight, sponsored by Delta Airlines, while other classic attractions like the People Mover and the Carousel of Progress continued to operate and continue to operate to this day. He also replaced the Visionarium Circle Vision movie over in Paris. Buzz has just taken over Tomorrowland, guys. Essentially, at this point, Disney was just playing catch-up with Tomorrowland. They repainted most of the Disneyland Tomorrowland into the blues and whites and silvers that we know it for, while also keeping some of the Jules Verne-inspired scenery like the Astro Orbiter or the loading station for the People Mover, which featured a kinetic sculpture called the Observatron. Very interesting name. The same thing happened over at the Magic Kingdom, which gave these two lands a very disjointed, disconnected feel. It's like walking into Liberty Square at the Magic Kingdom and hearing jazz music and seeing an old antebellum haunted manor over in the distance. Really kind of two conflicting tones. Stitch's Great Escape would replace Extraterrestrial Alien Encounter, and the Monsters Inc. laugh floor would replace the Timekeeper. See, now we're kind of catching up with the Tomorrowland we're all familiar with and that's there today. The Submarine Voyage at Disneyland, which had previously closed, would reopen, rethemed to a Finding Nemo attraction called the Finding Nemo Submarine Voyage. Hey Disney, listen, I know you guys are pretty good at naming things, but if you ever need any help, don't hesitate to ask. Anybody, not me, just anybody. Discoveryland over in Paris remained more or less the same, just, with Buzz. And of course, in 2016, the world's newest Tomorrowland would open at Shanghai Disneyland. This right now is pretty much my favorite design for Tomorrowland, but we'll see how it looks in 10-20 years. Shanghai's Tomorrowland would not feature Space Mountain, but instead a brand new roller coaster designed by Walt Disney Imagineering, Tron Light Cycle Power Run, which was met with very, very wide acclaim. I mean, just come on, look at this. This looks awesome. It would also open with, yes, Buzz Lightyear Planet Rescue, and instead of the Astro Orbiter, they would receive a new, more modern-looking version called the Jetpacks and the Stitch Encounter. Which now essentially brings us up to the modern day of Tomorrowland, where Disneyland's Tomorrowland kind of is still sitting almost in disrepair, with Disney having removed the French fry rocks in front of the land, which were added when the whole Jules Verne vibe was the goal. Magic Kingdom's Tomorrowland is receiving a brand new paint job, and the signs are changing for different attractions. Like, look at the old Monsters Inc. sign versus the new Monsters Inc. sign. Looks familiar, doesn't it? Buzz Lightyear over in Hong Kong was replaced by Ant-Man and the Wasp Nano Battle, which is a very interesting screen-based shoot-'em-up ride. I highly recommend you go look at a video. It's very interesting. And Space Mountain de la Terre à la Lune in Disneyland Paris was replaced by Space Mountain Mission 2, and then eventually by, I hate when these words come out of my mouth, Hyperspace Mountain. At D23 Expo in 2017, Disney announced that Tron Light Cycle Power Run from Shanghai's version of Tomorrowland would be coming to the Magic Kingdom in Orlando in addition to Space Mountain. Now you have two awesome roller coasters. It would be renamed though, this time to Tron Light Cycle Run. No power in this one. And that, everyone, is a brief history of Tomorrowland at the Disney parks. Well, as brief as I could make it. We're pushing 20 minutes here. Now that we're all caught up, we don't know what the future holds for Tomorrowland at this point, or for the Disney parks for that matter. It's a very uncertain time. Maybe, just maybe, Disney will move ahead with the retheming they're doing to the Magic Kingdom's Tomorrowland and Disneyland's Tomorrowland, and we can get a brand new, shining white, silver, and blue vision of the future. Or they're just gonna cancel all of these plans and we get to sit in squalor with our broken people mover and rickety Space Mountain for the foreseeable future. But now that we've looked back and we're going to be looking forward, I want to hear from you guys in the comments below. What is your favorite, now closed, Tomorrowland ride? And what are you looking forward to in the future? What would you do with Tomorrowland? Any of them in the world, what would you do? Me? Well, you know what I'd do. I'd fix the ride that rhymes with Spiepel Bloomer. And while Walt Disney's original version of Tomorrowland, a showcase for people to look into the future, is sort of dead now, I think Walt's secondary goal for Tomorrowland, to get people excited about the future, is more or less still alive and well today. Inspiring and showing people from all walks of life and all ages space travel, transportation systems of the future, and also overpriced pizza and monsters telling jokes. But hey, if that's not a future you don't want to live in, I mean, come on, check your priorities. Wow, so this episode is called A Brief History of Tomorrowland, and we're running on almost 18 minutes here. It's a very long and convoluted history here, folks. I'm trying to cover everything as quickly as I could, so if I skimmed over anything or skipped anything, just know that I thought about it. Didn't think it was worthy to include, though. I'm looking at you, Submarine Voyage. I love you. 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea? Not as much, but still pretty good. If you guys are interested in early episode audio, which all of my Patreon patrons receive for just $1 plus a month, head over to my link in the description down below. Visit my Patreon, and like I said, $1 will get you access to early episode audio and previews to upcoming videos. If you want to, you can also follow me on Twitter at Offhand Disney. I post weird and very, very controversial things over there sometimes, like how Epcot is the best park aside from Disneyland. If you disagree with me, you're wrong. I think that is going to about wrap it up for this video though, everybody. Thank you all so much for watching my brief, long, convoluted history of Tomorrowland. If you enjoyed this, please give it a like. Hit that subscribe button. If you want to see more brief history videos, I promise they might be a little bit more brief. I'm gonna get better at this. And last but certainly not least, I have to give a massive thank you to the Magic Candle Company for sponsoring this video. Go head over to their website, it's linked in the description down below. You can find tons of different scents associated with different Disney rides and even resorts if you're missing the parks right now during this time where you might not be able to get into them. I suggest the Pirate Life candle, and also remember to use code OFFHAND15 for 15% off your whole purchase. The more you buy, the more you save. Don't know if it works like that. And as always, I will see you all in the next video. Goodbye.